Welcome to the Marriage Masterpiece Show, where couples share their stories about life as an interracial couple. I'm your host, Jamie Court, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking to an amazing, amazing couple, Jesse and Felicia. Jesse is from Bruce, Wisconsin, and Felicia is from Hayward, California. A black and white couple. They've been married for almost 14 years, 17 years together. So thank you so much today, Roaches, for joining me.
Yes, thanks for having us. This is so fun. I love it.
I'm so excited to have you guys and just dive into 17 years. Wow, congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's exciting. I love just thinking about where we started to where we are now and where we're going.
Mm-hmm. It's exciting stuff. A lot of adventure ahead.
Yes, a lot.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's dive straight into it. How did you guys meet? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, my best friend was dating his roommate at the time. And as their relationship grew, she started hanging out at their house more often and then inviting me over, because these guys were never there. They both worked like 14-hour days and were never there. And they had a dog, so we would just go over there and take care of the dog and hang out. And so then when he would come home, we would always end up chatting. And so it was like a friendship at first. And then we realized we were seeing each other every day. It was like every day we were wanting to hang out, have dinner, go get lunch, and it just kind of grew from there. Until we were like, are we in a relationship? Is this a thing?
That was after like the first month, and we were like, are you my girlfriend? Or
yeah. So it and then it just kind of grew from there. We realized, okay, this is a relationship. Let's see where this goes, and here we are.
How long were you dating before getting engaged and married?
We were dating for 2 years before we got engaged.
Yeah.
And we were, we took a full year to plan the wedding. We ended up getting married in Oakland, California, and
on our anniversary. So that's why it's like,
so we kind of
we're
planned
like
it out that way.
14 years, 17.
Yeah, it falls on the same day.
Yeah.
From when we think we met is what we're
yeah, we go by that. We go by when we met because we never stopped hanging out. It was never like by the time we met, it was like we knew who we were, but we met at a dinner, and that was like the day that we got to know each other, really talked, and then it was just from then on out. So we go by that.
That's so cute. I love it. What has it been like for each of you to be married to someone? Obviously, all marriages, you're married to someone with a different background, but what does race look like? Bringing in a different culture, what does that look like in your marriage?
Yeah. For us, I'll say for me, it's interesting because, I'm Black, my family's Black. However, we have a lot of family members that are of light skin that are Black. So, and then I always lived in neighborhoods that were mostly white, or white and Mexican, especially being in California. So there wasn't a huge change for me as far as race is concerned. My parents have always been open to whoever you love is who you love. So it wasn't an issue for me as far as being in a relationship with someone who was white. And I dated other people that were in other races, so it wasn't a shock to my system. So I don't know, Jesse, it might have been a little bit different, but for me, I was just like, well, yeah, I like him. Okay, let's get married.
And I also grew up in predominantly white neighborhoods. There were very few, if any, Black, Mexican. There were very few outside of Caucasian that were in my small area that I lived in. So my exposure to different cultures and different backgrounds was really when I left high school and went in the military. And then it was that melting pot immediately, you know, and everybody's there, and you deal with everyone's issues, or you work together and everybody's in the same situation. So you create a bond with different people for the reason that you're all there to serve in the military, and you kind of forget home, but you still have that time to think about where you came from, and there were still differences. But that was kind of my first introduction to like, all cultures all at one time. So,
and I think in the beginning of our marriage, we were so focused on what in the heck we just signed up to. You know, he had been living on he's older than me, so he had been living on his own for quite some time since he had joined the military and left home. And then I got married at 24 and left my parents' home. Had never lived on my own or anything. And so, and to add on top of that, after being married, 5 days later, we moved here to Washington from California. So we literally were like, I don't even think race was a thing, because we were just two people who got married and were like, we're in love, let's do it, get married, and
we're like, now
shock to the system. Yeah.
Now I live with a boy.
I'm living with a boy. So this is new. So, you know, how do you, you know, use the toilet paper? How do you know, roll up your toothpaste? We were still trying to figure that out. It wasn't until probably later that we thought about race and what comes with it.
We were definitely thinking about it when we moved here, as far as the neighborhoods that we thought we could live in without having any issues, because we just didn't know the area that well. And eventually we figured out like the dynamics of the, you know, the demographics here and where we could live without having any issues. But
or what we thought
ultimately we were just honeymooning and didn't really think much about that, except for very like small short times where we, I guess, had to coordinate where are we going to live, where are we going to stay, where are we going to work.
Having kids, that sort of those conversations.
So was that always top of mind with you being Black, Felicia? Was that always top of mind? You just are always aware of your surroundings. You're always aware of where you plant yourself, where you live.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I you know, I say, I grew up in you know, like white neighborhoods or whatever, mixed neighborhoods. Went to church with a lot of white people or Mexicans. And then when I was down in Southern California, we were at a Black church. However, I've always known and have been aware of who I am and the color of my skin. And so I go into any situation, I wouldn't say on high alert, but on alert. Like, I know when I step into a room or go into a new state or city, to, you know, look at my surroundings. Okay, who's here? Okay, all right. So this could go this way or it could go this way. I always stay true to myself. However, yeah, I'm always aware, for sure. And when we moved here, he had just gotten a new job where he had to go to New York for training for 2 weeks right after we had moved here. So I was living here by myself, and I was like, babe, there's no, I don't know where we are. And we were living a lot further north. And so it was, yeah, definitely shocking. One, being from California. California is so different than Washington in certain ways. And then also, you know, when I'm surrounded by all these different cultures in California and then come here and it's not that many cultures and races. And so it was kind of like, okay, how do I act? Are there, you know, are there KKK? Where are we, babe? Where are we?
She actually called me one day while I was at training, and she celebrated seeing the first Black person that she had seen in the neighborhood.
No, he was Mexican. It was Mexican, because my brother called me and he said, have you seen any color yet? And I said, no, Chris. And literally as I was saying it, I was like, Chris, wait a minute. There's a guy, he's Mexican, he looks Mexican, and he's got a Raider sticker on. Hey! So Yeah, it was definitely interesting when we first moved here, and
Wow.
I had to be very aware. And like I said, I'm always aware, but especially when we first moved here, I just kind of like, I don't know where I am.
And coming from where I came from, I was naive to that. I didn't think about it at all. I wasn't concerned with it. I didn't think about it until we talked about how she felt, and then I had to be more aware. And so it really allowed me to see things differently whenever we did something, like even going to the store when we had our babies with us. And
That was,
you know, or I mean, we've had tons of instances, but just coming out of the hospital and having some people stare at you weird, or in the
and I think that was
grocery
probably
stores or something. And
his first time really, because we've had conversations, and you know, I'm always the one that's like, "Oh, babe, did you see that they were looking at us? They were staring." And he's like, "Really? Where?" Oh man. But it wasn't, I think, until we had Sydney first and then Tristan that he started seeing it and feeling it, like, okay, okay.
Some people just weren't okay with it.
So let's go straight into that question. Have you, obviously you have experienced looks, have you experienced comments? What does that look like? And then receiving prejudiced looks and comments. And then also, how have you navigated the emotions surrounding receiving those looks?
Yeah, I mean, the most common things that we get are usually people who don't think we're together. Most of the society that we're in never think we're together. And so it's always separate checks. Or if we go into Costco, if I'm not walking right next to him, they say, "Excuse me, ma'am," and they'll follow me and say, "Where's your card?" And I'm like, "Right there. We just showed it to you." Like on a regular basis.
That's pretty regular.
Yeah.
So we've had several times where we're sitting at the same table eating, and you know, they'll ask us if we want separate checks. And we might even be holding hands or sitting on the same side of the table, like we're really acting like a couple.
We both have wedding rings,
and
they still ask separate checks.
Will they ask?
Restaurant.
Will they ask if the kids are there?
Yep. Oh no, not the separate checks.
Not if the kids are there. No.
Yeah, no, not if the kids are there. What will happen is, like if we go to a restaurant with the kids, if Jesse goes in, if we'll walk in together, and they'll say, "Okay, how many?" And he'll say 4, and they'll say, "Okay, and you, ma'am?" And I'm like,
"What?"
White, black, caramel. Just can't put the equation together.
Count the people here. Count the heads.
Right.
Yes.
Literally, there was 4 people
Still
that walked
4.
in. So that's kind of like the everyday stuff that we'll get, and that we'll notice. That, or if we go on a date or something, and we'll get looks. Usually, it's like the older crowd that'll give us the looks. And honestly, it doesn't affect me. I'm the one. He's just kind of like, whatever. And I'm the one that's like, "Can we make out now?" And he's like, "Oh my gosh, Felicia."
Yeah. I can tell when she's even more PDA than there are people looking.
Yeah, so. He's like, "Well, okay, where are they?" I'm like, "That couple right there. Make it happen, babe. Make it good."
Let's prove it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow.
But, yeah, I mean, it doesn't really, honestly, it doesn't bother me. I think one of the things that's really great, that comes from my parents, that's really great, is that they, you know, taught us to be very strong and very, very secure in who we are. And so there's looky-loos and, okay, bye, bugaboos, you know what we call them. And we just ignore. I mean, so we don't ignore it. We acknowledge it. We see it. It doesn't affect me. I still got to eat my pizza. I'm still going to, I still got to go on with the rest of my day. And hopefully, they'll see the love that we share, and the love that we have with our kids, and, it changes their view a little.
And I hope that people learn, because love is love. And that's honestly,
yeah.
I think that's it with marriage in general. It's hard enough. And like you said in the beginning, you were learning and navigating all these just basic marriage differences, and then adding looks on top of that. What a beautiful way to go into it. Just, I hope that they can learn from us. And I really hope that people can learn from these conversations that marriage is marriage and love is love, regardless of what you look like. And so I really hope that people start to see that.
Yeah, me too. I think the best that we can do is lead by example. Because, if they think one thing, that's where their mind is already. You can't make somebody, you can't change their mind by, oh, but we really love each other. See, like, we really love each other. Anybody can say that and be living in hell at home. But if you can see by our actions and our genuine smiles and genuine laughter and conversation, that you can really see, okay, that's real love right there. And so it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'll say, for example, I mean, I see you guys, and even with your kids, there's so much fruit there. So great job. I mean, you're right. We see by the fruit, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you said going into marriage wasn't too many cultural differences. Have you found 14 years in that there are some cultural differences?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, I mean, you only know what you know, right? You only know what you've been raised around. And so, after we'd been together for a while, it was like, oh, well, Black people, we don't do that. You say things like that and you're like, oh, I guess that's a cultural difference.
Okay.
We were just talking about this earlier about, how, and I don't know, obviously you go by what you know. And so, he grew up in a home where it was very open door, like policy, where you did whatever you wanted to do. People could come and go as they please. It's like where everybody knows your name. Everybody just, free will. And in my home, it was like very structured. No, you don't come into my house unless we invite you. You don't surprise us, because if you do, we'll have a conversation at the door, and then you can go back wherever you came from. Children were seen and not heard. You had to knock before entering a room. And sometimes you had conversations with your parents behind a door. It was like, oh, so you're not going to open the, oh, okay, so we're just going to, okay, cool. So we're just going to stay. So, when we got married, it was like, and also with the Black community, they didn't talk about issues that went on, whether it was health or mental health or physical things, or it was always like, well, that's family business, and we don't talk about family business. And so it was like, oh, okay. So then when I move in with him, we get married, and he's just like, we talk about it all, and we talk about it with our friends when they come over. And I'm like, oh, oh, well, honey, we don't talk about it, or we'll be at the grocery store, and, he would bring up like, well, we don't really have money for that, with this and that, and, work this. And I'm like, and I would sometimes just walk away, and he'd be like, why are you walking? I'm like, we're supposed to be talking about our finances. People can hear, So it was a lot of difference for us. Like we were laughing about this earlier, because when we first got married, we had laundry, everybody does their laundry a certain way or whatever. We had our laundry out on the couch and then put some away. And I'm sitting there just hanging out, and he comes in with our neighbors. And I was like, and like, I just remember seeing like my underwear just like on the floor, because it didn't make it up the stairs. And he's like, yeah, you invited Chris and Kristen over, brought some beers. And I'm like, okay. And
you gotta meet the neighbors, you gotta hang out with them.
And like, that's just not what I was raised around. And so, because it's like, no, you got to make sure everything's right when people come over, because you might have drawers on the floor. He's like, oh, it's fine, just go ahead and grab it, and you can do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we got so much to work on.
Yeah, that might have been like month one.
I mean, literally, it was like literally month one. But yeah, I mean, those are some of the kind of cultural things. I don't think, because we're both Americans, I know that there are certain things that other cultures have or did, like I know that Africans, a lot of them don't wear their shoes in the house. They wear house shoes, or, that sort of thing. We didn't have that. It was more like, that's the nice side of the house. Kids don't go in there. Nobody goes in. That's the pretty couches. We have that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much like growing up in the country, you don't lock anything. lived around family. So everybody was going inside each other's homes or knew where something was. If you ran out of butter, you just go to your uncle's house and grab the butter and go back to your house. Like, and you know you'd replace it or whatever, but you just didn't worry about it. And you know, you don't need notice when somebody from your family's going to stop by and pop in and hang out for a while or do whatever. And so that was just kind of the habits, you know, more than culture. It was kind of like habits. And so we've had to really structure our lives around what we agree on and learn along the way, because there's definitely different habits. And
because in the beginning of our relationship, it was a lot of, well, I wasn't raised around that. So it was a lot.
But as far as like similarities, we both grew up in Christian homes. We both started in like young age, understanding and giving our lives to Christ. And her parents are pastors. My parents met in Bible college. So there's a lot of similarities there. That actually had a lot to do with us when we were dating, staying together, because I don't think we would have stayed together as long had those things not connected.
No, sir.
And so we were talking about differences, and we came up with more similarities, I think, than differences. That's why we were attracted to each other. We both like humor, and we both like have fun. And so there's a lot of things that has allowed us to have fun in our relationship and keep it alive. And I think that's meant more to us than anything.
That's great. So it sounds like faith plays a big role in your family. And how does it play a role now?
Yeah, I mean, it's the glue that binds us, I guess you could say. You know, we don't do anything without Christ being the center. We have our devotionals for our personal devotionals, and then we have our devotionals for us as a couple, and then as a family. Christ is the center. And I don't know, you know, we've said this so many times, we don't know how anybody can live their life without Christ being the center, because as we know right now, the world is so chaotic. And so you need Christ in your life and in your home and in your family, just to go day by day and not, you know, lose it.
Yeah.
Oh, like, it's just, yeah,
life is already a roller coaster, and then you add a difference of race, a difference of habits, throw in a couple kids and some dogs, and 14 years later, and, you know, we've definitely had ups and downs, and we've always gone back to, you know, how can we face this? And whether it's through, you know, talking to friends, pastors, counselors, it's always been a Christian-driven conversation.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was joking with some friends the other day. I looked through my contact list, and most of my friends in my contact list are people that I've met over the last 12 to 14 years through the church. And you just stay connected with them, and you have that common bond and similarity with them, but you can bounce things off of them and, you know, have great connection and conversations. And so we have the same thing in our relationship.
It's amazing. It is the glue. I agree. I don't know how people do life without God's grace.
Right? I mean,
I wouldn't want to try.
I do not want to know. Not one bit.
You. Okay, so going back real quick. So Jesse, you brought the neighbors over. That would be a shock for me as well. So with something like that, how have you navigated some compromises? So you said that you've learned now 14 years in, or you learned pretty early on what that looked like. How have you navigated some of those compromises?
It's really just a matter of understanding what the boundaries are, right? And you have to test the boundaries in order to figure out what they are. And you're going to have some hard no's and some maybes and some grace areas, you know, but you have to have that communication as far as what level is that going to be for each person. Like, you have to give and take in a relationship, but that doesn't mean you always give, and that doesn't mean you always take.
Right.
So
communication. I mean, we learned really early on that communication is key.
Because when it shuts down, it's also like the worst time that you'll have in your relationship.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I mean, every time something new came up, it's like, okay, let's talk about this. I'm not comfortable with this, or I really like this, and obviously you don't. So where can we go in this situation? So like in regards to the neighbors coming over, it was okay. Well, when we want to bring people over, we just need to check with the other person first to make sure, they're comfortable with people coming over, set a time frame. So it's not just that, hey, Bob's coming over. He's with me right now, walking in, here we go, and that worked for us. I mean, first of all, we were still new here, so it wasn't like we had all these friends that we were like, here comes some, but I think it started with that, and then it became family. Like once we got pregnant, and then it was like, hey, my mom's coming over, and it was like, no, she's not. And that was another, so it was another, okay, here's another issue. Let's talk about this. And then it was like, baby came. So-and-so wants to come over, see the baby. Let's talk about this. Or, he's tired. So, okay, well, I was going to have so-and-so come over. I really am not in the mood to have a friend over right now. Okay. All right. So, I mean, that given, like you said, that give and take, sometimes if he wanted somebody to come over and I was like, no. Or the same with me, if I wanted somebody to come over and he's like, I'm tired. Okay, never mind. That's fine. You got to communicate. You got to share your feelings with your partner. I mean, that's like huge in my book. Communication and sharing your feelings, because if you don't share your feelings, it just bottles up inside and then you vomit it out later. Well, that doesn't help this person understand what you're going through at that time, but also how can I fix whatever is making you uncomfortable. It's just it's like, oh, okay, so you had all of this, you harbored all of this. Well, now I have to go through this tick, 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 tick of all these things. And then we're probably going to miss something because you're in this state of, and you're probably missing something. So there's still something else that's, buried away in a closet or, whatever. And so it's just about communication. And I say this now knowing we know that like in the beginning of our relationship, communication was not there. It was like, because again, he was an adult in his 30s, had been living on his own for a while. I was an adult, but in my 20s and hadn't lived with anyone except with my parents who were like, you can go here, you can do that. No, you can't do that, even when I was in my 20s. So I went from that to we can do whatever I want. And he's like, no, well, we're married now. And so, yeah, we learned a lot. We worked hard through a lot, but I feel like that's marriage. You're working a lot.
And it sounds like with this communication and with compromises, the bottom line is you think of each other. And I think that's huge for people to learn is you have to be kind. You have to have a heart that's for the other person. And it seems like you really you know how to navigate that well.
Yeah. I mean, we worked hard for it. For sure.
There's definitely a difference in our communication styles, and that shows in everything that we do. So that was a big learning curve too, was just how each of us communicates and what's okay to bring out in different conversations. And so that part of it was probably the biggest learning curve, was just understanding how to communicate and when, and how hard you can communicate, and when you need to back off. We still work through some of that stuff. So I think that's just an ongoing thing.
Yeah, we're definitely not perfect. We are still learning and growing, but I think in the first few years of a marriage, that's when it's like you're digging in the dirt, you're knee deep in it, trying to figure out, okay, I did this, they didn't like that. Okay, so let's talk about this. Okay, great, so we're here. And then something else happened. Oh, okay, so you didn't like that. Oh, okay, so let's work on that. Oh, you really like that. Okay, great.
And then
let's get into that.
Changes.
And then it changes when you have kids. It's constant work, but it's so fun, and it's such a blessing to find that person and to work through things. I mean, to me, it feels like, it feels like you've completed a marathon. Okay, I completed a marathon. Look at me. Go us. Yes, high five. Like, it's so cheesy, but you feel so good after accomplishing something, even if it's an argument. Like, well, we had a disagreement and we didn't go off. Look at us. Like every step up, 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 up. It just feels good.
That's awesome. Communication is key. So you mentioned with people coming over, hey, my mom's coming over. Maybe not. So how have you navigated in-laws? I don't know. Does family live here now?
I think that was the big difference, was her family doesn't live nearby, but mine does. Mm-hmm. And so being an open door family that we were, my mom would just come over whenever. And, but there's times when we need her help too. And so then we'd love to have her around. I think just in the beginning, it was a shock to how open it was for Felicia, because she wanted it to be planned and structured and scheduled. And we're just not like that. So it wasn't working that way. And we tried, and we talked about that a lot. And then we had to make an exception. We have to trade off going for holidays to her family and my family. And I think we've done a really good job of doing that so that everybody can see family, and not always having to be somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's any real resentment between us over how we've had to do that, because we try to be flexible with it.
Yeah. And I think that one of the big cultural differences, I think, for our families, now that I'm thinking about it, is communication at the same time. Because like he said about his family being so open, so they could talk about anything and everything. And in my family, it was like, oh, we just don't, now's not the time to, we don't talk about that right now. Like, there's always a time and a place for everything. And also my parents were like, you respect your elders. So you don't just come talk to me in a whole kind of way. And I know, like, in the past, where we were still trying to figure each other out, where Jesse would say something where in my home it was fine, but in front of my parents, they'd be like, oh, okay. So that's how you talk. Oh, okay. And it was like, oh, well, he's just used to just, saying how he feels. And it's like, oh, okay, well, how does that work? But I will say this, so my parents are marriage counselors. So a lot of the times they would side with this one because they knew me. I'd be like, you're supposed to side with me. I'm like, no, you ain't doing it right. Oh, shoot. But that was definitely, I think, one of the differences that we had is communicating. How you speak to parents, how you talk to them, the things that you talk to them about. Even like arguments, like in my family, I don't think I've as an adult, I've heard my parents have disagreements. But growing up, before I got married and moved out, I think maybe one time, because they were about like, no, we have a conversation. They would sometimes be sitting in the garage in their car, and I'm like, what are you doing in there? And I'm assuming they were having a disagreement. Because they just never fought, and they never not fought, but you know what I mean? They never had disagreements in front of us. And then I don't know what it was like with your family, the disagreements, if they were in front of you or not, but we would have disagreements, and his mom would like chime in, and I'd be like, oh, well, then you open the door, so you're gonna get this fire too. And he'd just be like, yeah, well, you're that. And I'm like, and my mom would say, well, if you open that door, then you're opening the door to the conversation, and then you have to deal with the conversation. And so she was like, well, we have always been raised that if you stay out of people's business. So once you were married and you moved on, unless you come to us and want counseling or you have questions, otherwise we're not getting involved.
So is that how in-laws involvement has been, where your family is more so removed? Well, and they live in another state, and Jesse, yours is more involved. Have they tried to, include themselves with parenting styles and whatnot?
In the beginning, right in the beginning.
When you're a brand new parent, I think you're taking advice from everybody, and they tell you how they raised you, but that was 30 years ago. So some of the stuff, could be out of date, could be whatever people are still using or whatever, but I think we found that we had enough support around us, including so we could take their advice and put it with the other advice and then use what we felt was best.
Yeah. Well, and we also set boundaries. I mean, yeah, my parents are in California, but I still was able to talk to my parents, especially my mom over the phone. But with his mom being here, I think we just really just decided, we had a conversation, and it was like, okay, these are our boundaries. What are we comfortable with, and what are we not comfortable with? And then it was like, okay, and now, you need to go to your mom and let her know with grace, like, this is what we are okay with talking about, and then these are the things that we're just not okay with talking about. And that took some time, because his mom was always she's a giver, so she was always wanting to just give, and thought of it as like, well, I was just trying to help. And if we had said like, okay, well, but we don't want this, we love this, but we don't want this, she still felt like this was like hurting her feelings, trying to take something away that she was trying to give as a gift. And it was like, no, don't take it the wrong way. These are just the boundaries that we're setting for our family.
So did you, obviously, I'm guessing that helped. Did it help, setting those boundaries? Did it take some time for your mom to understand, or has there been a good balance now?
It definitely took some time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we are actually in a good place right now with her too. I mean, I don't think there was ever a bad place. I think we just had to let her know what we thought was best, and help her to understand what that was, so that she can get in line with that. It's like leave and cleave, right? It's, you have your own family, you have your own way that you are, you take all of the history and stuff from your families, but you also have to develop your own.
Right.
And some of that is starting your own traditions and starting your own things that you're going to enjoy as a family. And so, that's, we once we set that boundary with everybody.
Yeah, we definitely set boundaries for everyone, because it was just, I mean, that's what you do in a marriage. You have to. Otherwise, everybody and their mom is going to come in with an idea, a plan, a thing that for you to do, what they read online, what they did in their family, and it just becomes noise. And so you take what you want, and then you leave the rest, and then you build on what you took from being raised. Yeah.
Especially being a part of a large church too, you have a lot of different ideas on how to do things, and you have to take the good and leave the bad, and
not so much bad, but
things that don't fit for you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
That's great. I love that. Thank you for sharing. And moving into a little bit lighter note. So you said those traditions. What are some of the traditions, or what are something that you've learned since being married that you love about your spouse's culture?
I actually love being open. I thought in the beginning, like I said, like everything had to be structured. People had to have a time frame for they come over, or let me know when you're going to come over. I had to have my house situated. And now I'm a lot more free than previous. And I love it. I love like the open door. I mean, I love telling people, what, if you need something, we're here. Doesn't matter what time of day it is or what time of night, call us.
No drawers on the floor, but
no drawers on the floor. No. But
we learned that one quick.
Real quick. It's like it's just warm and inviting, and I love that feeling. I can give to others, and for us.
And I don't know if it's as much of a cultural thing as it is just a marriage thing, but being able to use each other's strengths and take a back seat when the other person is stronger in an area. And so, like, as far as managing the family in the house and leading the kids and everything, Felicia is amazing at that. And there's a lot of times where I'm just like, I need your help with this and this, and she's just like hard charging in and takes care of business, and it's not an area that I was either comfortable doing what she just did, or could not have delivered it the same way. But there's definitely areas where I appreciate her in those times where I'm just like, or it's a stressful situation that I'm really relying on her to help me out. And I think we both had times like that.
It's a give and take.
I think that's what I love about this being Masterpiece Marriages. It's a piece of art. I see marriage as such a beautiful piece of art, and you both are putting work into it for it to be beautiful. And it takes work. It takes a lot of work.
It takes a lot of work. And, in regards to culture, different cultures and race, we've really tried to build a home with our kids where they know that even though the world will see them as black, they aren't just black and white, and to respect that. And we've really we've made a plan to take our kids outside of America and, go to different countries and explore and see what the world has to offer. Outside of our home, outside of our culture. So they're open to everything. He's Polish and knows nothing really about it. And so we're wanting to kind of dive deeper into that as well, so that they know that side of them. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're trying.
That's awesome. And I love that you said that you are still navigating and you're still learning and being educated on your heritage. And I think that's really important. Specifically, I mean, I'm English and Australian, and I've gotten only to go to Australia, but I'd like to learn more about my heritage as well. So that's really cool that you're going to get to learn and experience that with your kids. And I love that you said that you are still navigating and you're still learning and being educated on your heritage. And I think that's really important. Specifically, I mean, I'm English and Australian, and I've gotten only to go to Australia, but I'd like to learn more about my heritage as well. So that's really cool that you're going to get to learn and experience that with your kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and the same with me. I mean, as a Black American, there's a lot of Black Americans that don't know anything about where they come from. We have Ancestry.com, which my mom has taken full steam ahead on and found so many very cool, interesting things. But we just did our DNA stuff a couple of years ago. And so now I'm like, oh, so what do I do with this information now that I know that I'm, Nigerian, and I'm also from Cameroon, and, so it's definitely a learning time for us right now, diving deeper into where we are from, so we can pass that on to our future generation.
That's so cool. So bringing in those traditions and that heritage, was there something maybe really important to either of you that you wanted to bring in and keep alive in your family?
I don't know if there's anything that we'd want to bring in, but we definitely want to establish our own things that we can appreciate about our family. And I think a lot of that goes back to being involved in the church and setting up time where we can fellowship together. And, we always have music playing and the kids are singing, and that's my most enjoyable time is when we're just being a musical family. And we do that in the car, we do that in the house. We were constantly playing music and singing along and having fun doing that. So I think, and that's kind of our thing that we've started more of as the kids get older, that we can draw them into, and that they can enjoy family time and enjoy time with us. Mm-hmm. And so not necessarily a specific culture thing, but definitely something that we really enjoy as a family.
Yeah, because coming from a Black family, I came from a Black family, but it was also a Black family that was very steeped in church. So, I grew up where it was you can't listen to secular music unless it's, I don't know, Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, like some specific people. And really the only traditional things that we would do were around the holidays. And that was just the cooking and the food. And then sitting around and just having good family time. So I think we do that now. We want to continue doing that. And then also add in new traditions as well. That we can make our own, that our kids can.
I think we try to do annual events, and it changes as the kids get older what we do.
Yeah.
But there are definitely some things that we're doing kind of more on a regular basis as a family. I think just any family time is really the most important. The most fun thing for us is just to all get in the car in the evening and go for a drive and spend a half an hour to an hour going some direction, and we don't even have a plan. Yeah. And we just have fun, and we see where we end up, and then we might have a snack and then turn around and come home or not. And that's like, we turn that into fun time.
What do the holidays look like for your family, bringing in maybe not cultural backgrounds, but some family traditions that you had?
Yeah.
The meals, for sure.
Yeah, the meals.
There's definitely spiral honey ham is...
Honey baked ham,
yep.
Sweet potatoes,
Felicia's
collard
mom
greens.
Makes amazing mac and cheese, and Felicia's adopted that mac and cheeze.
Yep,
mac and cheese. So that's a big favorite. Sweet potato pies.
So food, and then also, I don't know, I don't remember what you would say about your family and getting up for Christmas, but I was the one in my family that got up at the butt crack of dawn. And what's funny is, like, actually thinking about that, my grandmother would make everybody wait until the families got together that evening, and then they would have dinner, and then after dinner they would let the kids open a present. And so
Christmas Eve,
on Christmas Eve you go one present, and then
right.
Then and then the same the next day. You waited. It was like, oh no, we're not doing that. So with me, I was just always so excited I'd be the first one to wake up. And so then when we got together, I was like up at like 5 a.m. and he's like, no. Like, no, we're gonna do it. Our
family would get together Christmas Eve and do like a family exchange where everybody would get a gift or something. But Christmas morning was get up as early as you can get your parents out of bed, and
that's pretty much it. Yeah, what we've continued on is getting up early. Well, we do let our kids open up a present, the night before. I think that's just because they just bug us, so we're like, fine, take one. It's not even like an event, some people have like events. But we're just like, go ahead. But yeah, we open up presents, and then we have breakfast, and then we take a nap, and then we cook all day, and then we eat as soon as the food's ready. It's not like, we're gonna eat at 5 or 6. No, we're usually eating at like 2 or 3.
2 to 3. Yeah. And then again at 7 or 8.
Oh, also we'll then go to the movies. That was a tradition that I grew up doing, where we always went to the movies on Christmas Day after everything. And so we try to do that now.
That's so fun. I hear families do that. We've never done that, going to a movie, but I hear families do that, and I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we always would go to the movies, and it was fun to just get out of the house because you're already in the house, Christmas Eve or whatever. And then if, with our family, a lot of our family members weren't as close as far as proximity. So it was like, okay, what are we going to do today with just our little 4-person family? Okay, we're going to eat, we're going to hang out, we're going to laugh, and then we're going to go to the movies. So it was always fun.
It's such a rich time. I love it. Okay, so what is the best resource you have found that has helped you navigate interracial marriage? What have you learned the most from?
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. I think, honestly, it has been meeting other couples that are in the same predicament or, like relationship with that as us, an interracial couple. When we first moved here, I say I because he was always traveling for work, and so I was like, what am I gonna do? So I joined these mommy
meetup
groups where I hadn't even had Sydney yet. I was just pregnant, and I was like, I don't care. I'm a mom. I'm going. And I met so many other moms that were in interracial relationships. And it was really, really nice to be able to just talk with them. And not all of them were Black women, but they were all in a relationship with someone that was not from their culture. And so it was really nice to be able to start off that way. Then once we became friends, we were able to go out as couples and then as families. And that really helped, I think, us all be able to bond together and know that, okay, we're not crazy. Y'all went through the same issues. Okay, cool. All right. So how did you deal with that? How did you handle that?
And it's amazing because 14 years later, 12, 13 years later, when we met those couples, we're still friends with some of them. Their kids are our kids' ages.
Yeah.
They've had more kids. We had more kids. So they're all kind of in the same group. And
they've gone through, some of them have even gone through harder things than we have, where one friend in particular, she's actually been called, nigger in front of her kids, and her kids have been called, names in front of her. And so we've been able to kind of sit down and talk about that stuff and learn, like, okay, well, what did you do? And she was like, I was angry. I went through my emotions, and then I move on, and I have to explain to my kids, like, this is why this happened. And we just move on and know that that's not the words, that you're not who they say you are. You're not the words that come out of their mouth. And so it was really, I think, important for us to be able, because books are great, movies are great, counseling is great, but really it's getting in connection with people that are in the same situation as you are. And it doesn't mean, I had all these girls that were Black, they were white, or, whatever, but it's getting to know couples that are in interracial relationships and learning to, figure out family dynamics. And because marriage is hard in and of itself, and in-laws, dealing with in-laws, and all of that stuff is already hard. But when you throw in cultural differences, it just adds another layer to the cake, and so really it's just about, I think, not surrounding yourself, but, like getting to know other couples that are in the same, situation, so that you have somewhere to go to talk to, and know that you're not alone, really.
Create some normalcy. I think that's what it's been for me, is I'm not alone. I got to talk to a couple other white women that are married to Hispanics, and it's exactly what you said. Okay, I'm not crazy. It was very validating. It was very safe because they related, they could relate. And that's what I want to do here, is create a community where people feel safe, where they can ask questions. Oh my gosh, they went through exactly what we're going through, and other couples can learn. And I think that's so huge, because I didn't like feeling alone. It was very alienating and isolating, especially when I'm the only white person that is married into my husband's family, and sitting there with everyone speaking a different language than it has felt, isolating at times. It's beautiful, and I'm learning the language. It's just taking me a little bit longer. So if even just one other couple can learn and relate and feel safe to ask questions, feel safe to and validated that they're walking through the same thing, I think that's just going to be so helpful.
Yeah. And it can be uncomfortable if you're in the minority, if you will, in the area wherever you are. And I can admit there were a lot of times where I was at Felicia's parents' church and I was the only white person in there. And it was different. I knew that I belonged there because I was with her. I knew that I was accepted, but I just felt out of place and had to really work on being comfortable and getting over what it should look like versus what it really was.
And the same with me in the beginning. It was like every time we went to family events with his family, I was like,
ball out. but you belong and they accept you there. And as long as you're, I think, open to communication with them and they may not like everything about you. You may not like everything about them, but you're going to figure it out and you're going to get along. And, you know, marriage is meant to be a long lasting thing. And the better you communicate about that, and talk about all those things that you think are off.
Yeah.
That's really the key.
But also, I think, you know, being careful with what you say about your partner. And that's in any situation, but especially when you come from a different culture where there might be some racism or there might be some judgment there. One, you shouldn't even be talking about your partner and your relationship, you know, outside with everybody. However, if you're going to talk about your partner, make sure you know who you're talking to. You know, if you want to share some grievances or some, you know, whatever with your parent or someone that you trust in your family, make sure it's somebody that you trust and know you know they're not going to go and spread that negativity out, because there are, you know, in different cultures there are these you know, racism is real and there are some stereotypes. And so if you start talking negatively, like, oh, when they do this, well, you know how those Mexicans are, they do that, or you know how those black people are, you know, they're always loud and do this, you know, you're feeding into that negativity when you shouldn't be doing that. You should be showing how great that person is, because they are a human being and there's no difference. Just because there's a cultural difference doesn't mean that they are from a different planet.
It's easy to find a difference and then make it bigger than it really is.
Yeah, just be mindful of, you know, what you're putting out there, because it could be feeding into a stereotype and making them consistently look at your partner a different way.
Wow, that is huge. Thank you for that. Oh my gosh. So then on that note, that's already incredible advice, but what's the biggest piece of advice that you want to leave other couples?
Honestly, like we just kind of said, I really think, you know, finding other couples that are in the same situation as you, then also just really trust God, trust your heart and trust God.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the outside noise. Because there's always going to be someone out there that's going to try and pull you away from somebody you love because of the color of their skin or the culture that they come from. And they'll have these great, you know, bullet points as to why it just probably won't work out. But if you know that is who God has put in your heart, God put in your life to be with, then you trust God, not man. You don't trust the whispers. You don't trust the noise. You trust God and what he's saying to you in your heart. And so really just finding some good, solid foundations with friendships, other relationships, and then really keeping Christ the center. Because, you know, marriage is hard, but you can get through it. You can move forward. You can move up if you really work on it and you really, you know, make sure that there's trust between the two of you. And that we aren't, what's the word I'm looking for? Betraying that trust.
Yeah. And the only thing I would add to that is, and that's great, don't go into the relationship for the wrong reason. You know, you can't force it, and there may be obstacles that you don't see in the beginning that are going to come up that cause you to not be able to pursue it, but you can't go into it for the wrong reason.
Right.
And
yeah, don't go into a relationship just because your mama doesn't want you dating a black man. So you're going to force your mama to like black people. That ain't going to work either. You know? So it's like you really, I mean, trust your heart. Trust God. Know that, like, if this is the right person for you, awesome. If you know in your heart that that's not the right person for you, but you're fighting everybody around you because you want to make them know that this is the right person.
Yeah, that's going to
maybe
make
it's not the right person.
Whole life challenging.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be enjoyable because you're forcing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Education, trust, and have sex. Come on, people. Hurry.
Have to celebrate that part too.
Yes, you have to. You can't ignore it. And, you know, it's like, we laugh at all the videos where it's like, now I have a headache. I have a headache. Now I have a headache. And I'm like, that's so funny. That's cute. But I'm not. No. Girls, don't do that. Don't do that.
It's real. It's not.
Another video.
That's a
another
whole
topic.
other yeah.
Yes, next time. Part 2.
Part 2. Yeah.
I
But
love it.
have fun. I mean, have fun with your partner and live in the moment. Goodness. I mean, right now, our time, like we said earlier, is so chaotic right now. And sometimes in life, you feel like, well, you're the only person I have. So enjoy that and make it great.
That's awesome. What's something fun you guys like to do together?
We're so goofy that we we have fun no matter what we're doing. We're not like, we don't have like, oh, we always love going to dates on Wednesday and going golfing or anything like that. We just do whatever. We're very spontaneous. I'll say that. We love just doing things off the cuff, like, oh, let's go here, let's do this. And we just have so much fun doing it because we're so silly. We're usually laughing the whole time at each other, making each other laugh.
We try to work out together, but sometimes that's tough because I'm a goofball.
Working out together, yes.
I make fun of the people on videos.
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm like, babe, I'm trying to work out. And he's like, like, oh my gosh. We just try to make each other laugh as much as we can. I mean, we just, our kids think we're crazy, but we just laugh a lot.
They're goofy too, though, so they didn't fall far from the tree.
And for their partners, for wherever
Yes.
that is.
I love it. I just think you're such a good example of the joy of the Lord, and you exude that. And I can just tell, people can tell that it starts from within. You know the joy of the Lord, and that comes out. So I celebrate that, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie.
So awesome, and I can't wait to see where this goes.
Thank you.
For the couples.
Well, thank you. And thank you just so much for joining on this call. I appreciate all of your wisdom, all of your insight, and just opening up your heart and allowing us into your story.
Yes. Thank you for talking to us. This was so awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.